Bueno, hola, ¿qué tal familia? Bendiciones, la paz de Dios sea con todos ustedes hoy, mañana y siempre en el nombre poderoso de Jesús. Quien les saluda y le habla a su hermano Evangelista y Feli por este lugar. Por acá le tengo parte de lo que es la audiencia que se tuvo pues realizando en el día de hoy y quería compartirla con todos ustedes. Unos detalles que me gustó impresionante, tal como se lo hice saber a todos en el día de ayer, que se iba a hablar, que se iba a sacar algo a luz sobre Ramos. Más sin embargo, eso se estuvo hablando. Esto está impresionante. Tienes que verlo, tienes que escucharlo. Hay algo que yo sé que te va a llamar muchísimo la atención. Lo que dijo el juez. Ahora la fiscalía tiene más presión todavía para entregar lo que le están pidiendo. Yo se lo dije a usted anoche. Hay cosas que la defensa va a pedir, a recalcar para que se le entregue, porque hay cosas que todavía ellos no han entregado. Sobre todo, lo que más nosotros agarramos es la parte de que lo que es, bendito sea el nombre poderoso de Jesús, la fiscalía no tiene audiencia, no tiene la evidencia suficiente de lo que ellos están hablando. Volvió a tocarse el tema sobre Ramos, pero hay unos detalles que yo quiero compartir con todos mis seguidores. Así que presten mucha atención y escuchen esto.
Because what we're concerned about, all of us, are the conditions that Derek is being held under, and I want to get to the right spot with this. So, if you would. All right, we're going to...
Are you opposed to signing an order in order to expedite the 60-day window?
Oh, yeah, prepare one. Let's see what Ms. Cummings says. Now, I may, obviously, people like the school board, they get upset when I start entering orders without hearing from them. But if Ms. Langer believes that she can put together something that will work and that the school board's not going to get crazy about, yeah, for sure. I'd like to see this done as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll prepare an order today.
If you would, pass it past Ms. Cummings, Jones Cummings, so at least she has some notice. I don't know what standing she has to object to anything there, but I'll want to take a look at it. And if I need to speak with Ms. Langer, I don't know if I'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, I want to move to the discovery issues now.
Señores, cuando se termine la audiencia no se vaya porque vamos a detallar, vamos a hablar de qué fue lo que pasó, ¿verdad? No queremos interrumpir, pero vamos a hablar de eso.
The defense response to the state of Florida's court-ordered interim discovery report. Oh, and I'm looking at the state's interim discovery report at the same time. So on some of these things, you guys have reached consensus. On others, not so. So the first thing I'll ask is, the first area of disagreement I have is when you speak to the Facebook printouts. On the defense pleading, that appears on page 2, paragraph 1. Everybody on board with that?
Yes, sir.
On the state's pleading, it is paragraph 5. The state objects to the provision of the Facebook printouts. I have some question about this. When you say Facebook printouts, what is that? Ms. Morales or Mr. Borst?
Van a hablar de las impresiones de Facebook.
Explain in five, but essentially, so if we go back to the early on investigation, Your Honor may recall that before the defendant called 911, he called a friend that was by a name that wasn't the person's actual name, and had, a conversation of some time after the killing before he called 911. So when the detectives were investigating, trying to figure out who this person was that had the conversation with the defendant in between those two things, the defendant in his statement to police gave some information, and then when access to his phone became available, they were able to locate a phone number. That phone number, they then did subpoenas to the phone company to try and get subscriber information to who that belong to. It's not a local number, it's in another state. And then through their investigation trying to identify who this person was, when they were able to see in the chat on the defendant's phone.
Ella está hablando de que Derek habló con alguien por Facebook, pero ¿dónde está la bendita prueba? Porque eso te lo están pidiendo hace rato.
Pays the bill, right, for that phone. They looked on Facebook and just input the person's name. So in the way that any person has their normal Facebook page and it shows like a picture of themselves and their name, that's what I'm talking about. So when they looked at that person's, that's an adult, they were able to see related friends of that person, which included the minor child. They were able to figure out that minor child was the same person the defendant spoke to because the picture of the Facebook.
Está hablando de las fotos que Dere supuestamente envió, que sabemos que es mentira. Ella está yéndose al día derecho.
As a part of their file, they printed out the profile page of the adult who's not a party to the case, who pays the phone bill for the child that the defendant was speaking with, the child's Facebook profile picture, and the child's mother profile printout as well, who's also not a party to it. They then used that information, which on it had a county in the other state, and then the detectives went to that state and used local law enforcement assistance to locate the home essentially, and that's how they ended up with the interview of that child. That interview was recorded, it's been previously turned over in discovery, as well as all of this explanation of how it got there. So that's essentially what it is. I have them, and I put in the email when I sent it over that if Your Honor wanted to do an in-camera review just to see exactly what it was in case my explanation was not giving a full picture, that I was happy to walk over, which I still can do if Your Honor wants to see the camera, but that's essentially what it is. It's 3 different people's Facebook profile pages that the detectives just printed out.
Se durmió el juez, fue. Te dormiste, bigotón.
So I guess the questions I need to ask are, Ms. Riello, why is it discoverable under 3.220?
Well, Your Honor, I think that, I imagine that part of the reason why Ms. Morales has all of this information regarding steps taken throughout the investigation is because she's spoken to the detectives. I assure you I've read all of the discovery, and nowhere in there does it lead me step by step to what Ms. Morales just said. It is discoverable because, according to Rule 3.220, subsection B1B, a statement, which is what the state is citing as an objection to why this is not discoverable, is specifically intended to include all police and investigative reports of any kind prepared for or in connection with the case. I believe that we have the right, in order to explore all viable theories of defense, to be taken through those exact steps that...
Riero sigue diciendo que le violaron los derechos, que cree que le violaron los derechos. Todavía la defensa está tirando bomba.
Because on page 7, as I stated in my motion, of the detective's report, which I have read several times, he himself points the reader to refer to the printouts.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Ms. Morales, obviously your detective has it in his case file. I'm assuming he has these printouts in his case file.
I'm sure he does, Judge, because he gave them to me.
There you go. I tell you what, Ms. Riello, when you take his deposition, you can ask him to show them to you then. Whether you need copies of them after that, we'll litigate that later. Does that work for everybody? All right, I'm going to also ask you to note this is one of the things that I expect to see in an order that one of you will prepare for me, or maybe Mr. Frankel will, when we're done. So, with regard, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Judge, I don't want to interrupt. When the video recorded statement of that minor child was turned over, his face was blurred. If we are turning over the one of the minor child, maybe blur his face?
Well, you're not turning it over yet, ma'am.
All right, understood, but if we get there, maybe blur.
Yeah, if we will cross that bridge when we get to it. At this point, the defense will have an opportunity to get a look at it during the deposition, and if there's need for them to have copies of it, because we're talking about identities of juveniles and things that I believe are appropriate under the protective order.
Señores, bomba, todavía no entregan, todavía la fiscal no ha entregado. Ay, Dios mío.
All right. As to think the next area raises. Second. Text messages between Detective Elosegui and Mr. Ramos. That goes to paragraph 6D of the original, of the third motion to compel, and it refers over to paragraph 9 in the state's response. So paragraph 2 in the defense pleading, paragraph 9 in the state pleading. Text messages between Elosegui and Ramos. The state indicates this should be denied.
Van con Ramos ahora.
Messages between them on June 24 of this year, and they are not aware of any additional messages. The defense, on the other hand, asks me to order all additional text messages after October 19, 2023. So, are there any text messages between the detective and Mr. Ramos
Van a hablar de los textos de Fran Ramos y el
not been turned
detective.
over to the defense? Ms. Morales?
I don't believe so. Upon receiving this again, reached out to Detective Elosegui and asked, and was advised that the only message was what had been turned over, which was when Mr. Ramos sent a couple of pictures, I guess, from a baby monitor. And that was it. So I know both of them are subject to deposition.
Excusa.
To the best of my knowledge, that's all that exists at this time.
And excuse my ignorance in this sense, but you guys have access to all the discovery and you've been working super hard. I only get what's brought before me. Okay?
Right.
I'm assuming that Mr. Ramos is the stepfather
Yes, he's the father of, yes, he's the stepfather.
and the father of the infant that was in the same room at the time of
Ay, 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 ay. Dice que solamente la foto, señores.
because I'm running
Que hay conversación solamente de la foto entre Fran Ramos y el
make
detective.
sure the
Ay,
detective Elosegui understands
Me va a dar una
that
vaina
his
aquí.
communications by text with Mr. Ramos, who I'm sure is some type of witness for you in this case, that those text messages are discoverable. They are statements of witnesses, okay? They are not to be deleted, they are not to be destroyed. And any text messages between the detective and a witness are to be turned over.
No tiene los textos, señores.
I will let you know, Judge.
Me va a dar una
Mr.
vaina.
Yellen, you will have an opportunity to depose, obviously, these two witnesses, and if there are any text messages that you learn about between them, you will inform the court, we'll order them produced. Okay?
Your Honor, and just to make the record even more clear,
Sure.
I don't know, obviously I don't know, but I
Sí,
have, as I
apúrate.
said,
Ay,
I
ay, ay,
discovery, I've done so thoroughly, and it appears to me with certainty, based on what has been provided, that at the very least, on November 27th, 2023, there were additional messages on the same thread that the state previously provided. So I'm asking, you know what, I could go ahead and file another motion and I can attach that as an exhibit.
Let's do that, okay? And in fact, perhaps if you guys were to pick up the phone and speak with each other, Ms. Morales, you might call your detective and identify those specific dates and see what you got.
Yes, I'd be happy to. From what I know, that's all there was, but I'm happy to tell you a little
Señores,
specific.
señores, Rielo le está diciendo sí, el 27 y otro día más hubo conversaciones que hay que buscar. Rielo está dando el pescado,
But
señores.
the state is on notice that they are required to turn over the text messages. You put them on notice that they may be missing some. And I'm gonna, put in, let's make the second thing we're putting in this order. All text messages between Detective Elosegui and Mr. Ramos shall be produced. All right, paragraph 3 in the defense pleading.
Dele me gusta a esto, señores. Dele me gusta, somos casi 500 personas. Dele me gusta.
State's pleading, that deals with Detective Elosegui and Mr. Verdecia, who, what I'm learning about,
Vamos con Verdecia ahora.
cleaned up the murder scene after it had been released by the police. The state indicates that they, or seem to say there are no text messages prior to today, and that they have sent a video that Mr. Verdesia took while he was cleaning the bloody murder scene after he'd been released. Is there a reason to believe, Ms. Riello, that there's something else out there?
Well, I think before we even get there,
Yes,
with this particular item, I had an issue because it's kind of wacky or illogical to conclude that I would know of text messages on the 17th of July that were not exchanged until the 6th of August. So again, I'll repeat, I don't know what I don't know, but reviewing the discovery that has been provided so far, I do believe that there are additional text messages between Detective Elosegui and Luis Verdesia. Now, what I'm asking for is not only those additional text messages, but I'm also asking for a better exhibit than the one that was provided, because the one that was provided, although it says that it was exchanged on the 6th of August, there's no timestamp, there's no date stamp, so there's no way for us to see exactly when that was exchanged between Detective Elosegui and Verdesia.
Okay, after you take their depots, if you're still unable to figure that out, then we'll go ahead and do that. But right now, because we're one of only 4 states in the country that allow pretrial statements from witnesses, I'm going to ask the parties to avail themselves of that to flesh this discovery out. And what's left after that, I'll enter the appropriate orders. But based upon a belief that maybe they're out there, I'm not going to enter an order based upon that. We'll take their depositions. I'm going to move now to the Hialeah Police Station footage.
Señores, ay Dios mío, Riello está diciendo que lo que le entregaron no tiene fecha ni hora. Riello le está dando hasta con
paragraph 4, page 5 and 6 of the defense pleading, and it is paragraph 11 of the state pleading. Now, obviously, something that is in the hands of a police agency is constructively considered to be in the hands of the state attorney's office, but when we look at reality,
dale me gusta, mi gente, dale me gusta, somos 500 personas.
And it's held by the police department there. Ms. Morales seems to indicate that her inquiries show that they're no longer being retained by Hialeah Police Department. Is that so, Ms. Morales?
Yes, sir. When I received that, I reached out to just try to confirm if they exist or not. So if they did, I could get them. And I was told that whatever there would have been from back then at this point is past retention date.
Okay. Now, I also understand from your pleadings, Ms. Riello, that you have filed a Chapter 119 request for the production of these materials, and that the response, let me see if I can find it again, and the response you got was that they are privileged or exempt from
Sin hora y sin fecha no se reciben. Ay, mi madre. Así mismo es.
2D and 3A. So my question to you is, do you believe that Hialeah is correct about that?
I don't know that I know that, Your Honor. I do think that a court order...
Do they fit under those exemptions? That's the question, ma'am.
Oh, the answer would be no. I believe that it's discoverable Brady material. I think
No,
that...
ma'am, why do you believe it's Brady material?
Your Honor, because we're talking about a 13-year-old child that was transported at almost 2 hours, okay? He was in a cop car, and the only video that I have...
No podemos traducir ahora porque vamos a estar interrumpiendo.
At 2:46 in the morning by Detective Elosegui and the other detective that was present while Ms. Morales was in the room. I believe that anything that happened, I don't have any video footage, and I believe I'm entitled to it, from the time that that child entered the station until he left the station. The next footage that I have of that child is when he's being booked. So I could prepare and I could supplement the court in writing with why I don't believe that the response by the city that they are exempt from public disclosure does not apply.
La vamos a traducir cuando se acabe, señores. Le vamos a decir lo que pasó.
Exempt or it doesn't exist. I don't
Okay, so
understand.
let's start from there. Number one, Ms. Morales says that she's told by Hialeah it doesn't exist. So the best that the state of Florida can give you is it doesn't exist. Now, in the interim, you've said this is Brady material based upon your presentation and how I asked, why is it Brady material? You have given me nothing to indicate that it is exculpatory. So but do not allow my silence on this to be in agreement with you that there is Brady material there. But let's go to the 119 issue. You have made a public record.
Señores, no hay videos, no hay videos, Dios
If you
mío.
believe that Hialeah Police Department is incorrect legally and that it is not exempt, well, then you have the appropriate remedy under Chapter 119, and I suggest you take it, and that is to sue Hialeah Police Department. I accept the statements of Ms. Morales, that it has been represented to her that
La defensa quiere saber dónde estaba Derek desaparecido por 2 horas, señores. Ay, Dios mío, no puedo hablar ahora mucho de eso.
after 90 days. Storage facility now for electronic evidence is much more expanded, but if Hialeah if they don't have it, they don't have it. And your request for
They don't have it.
as indicated here, is pretty far down the line. So I'm going to leave it as this. I will not order anything with regard to that video. It has not been clearly delineated as containing Brady material, and you can pursue your Chapter 119 remedies with Hialeah. I'm going to move now to the second section of your pleading, Ms. Riello, and that is the motion to compel discovery related to DNA evidence.
Señores, no tienen los videos de la cámara corporal. Ay, Dios mío.
Discoverable under Rule 3.220, and I think I previously ordered it to be disclosed. How are we doing on that?
May I answer?
El juez lo dijo, es cierto, el juez lo dijo, no tienen.
How are you doing on providing the extensive materials
Ay, Dios mío, está
on the
bueno.
lab?
We forwarded the defense motion to compel, and as we indicated in our response to, we did not have an objection. We forwarded that motion. They put everything that the lab believes was responsive, and I guess their entire file on a disk. Our office went, picked it up, advised the defense on the 12th of this month that we had that available for copy and inspection. They reached out, and then that was hand-delivered to the defense on August 14th.
Wonderful.
So
Does that adequately respond to your request in this area, Ms. Riello?
That does, Your Honor, thank you.
Excellent, good. And I happened to see Commander Stoyloff a couple of weeks ago. We did a visit.
Frank, ¿dónde está el video que tú hablaste, Frank? Que no lo
We did get a
tenemos.
look at their operation there. They're
Dios
working
mío.
hard. Okay, the next thing is on page 7 of the defense pleading, and that is paragraph 611. All reports and partial reports from any and all communications platforms, including Discord, Google Chat, Slack, WhatsApp, iMessage, and any other communications platforms. Now, the state has indicated that they do not have possession of any Google Chat or Slack. And that the WhatsApp messages and iMessages are on the phone extraction report that have been provided. Is there anything that is still lacking on the request for Discord, Google Chat, Slack, WhatsApp, and iMessage?
So I did locate the very small response that was received by the detectives for the search warrant for Discord. It does not have any chat. I don't think that they keep that. But what it essentially just has a subscriber information. I just sent that over just before this meeting because I located that. Otherwise, everything else, the complete forensic download of the defendant's phone, including all the deleted items, was turned over, I want to say a while back. I'm looking just to see the day, but all of the communications and it's very voluminous, but the messages between people, everything that we believe exists is contained therein.
Ella lo dice está fatal, que ella localizó una información, pero no, era una información pequeña de un pequeño usuario, Todo es pequeño aquí.
Have you guys gotten that yet?
We have not.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I sent it literally just before this hearing, but there's almost nothing in it. There's no messages, it's just subscriber information.
All right. If you don't have it, you'll let us know and we'll include it in today's order. But the state says they provided it to you. Now, the last matter that you bring up that's lacking is you've requested any and all police reports, rap sheets, body-worn camera, and 911 CAD reports. Then you give me a nice graph here of what has been provided and what has not been provided with regard to body-worn camera. Looks like you got a lot of body-worn camera, but that you're still missing a lot of reports. Or unknown. Okay, so all of that, you know, these cases take a long time for the detectives to get all the reports done, although it looks like you're getting it done pretty quickly for this type of case. When we last discussed, and I want to overall talk about the progress and what can be done in discovery. The last time we spoke, y'all indicated that you had depositions scheduled for the end of this month. Is that still so?
Yes, Your Honor.
That a yes?
That's a
We do
yes.
have some, Judge. The defense canceled some, but we have a lot of others still this month and next month.
Okay, good. Because regardless of where Mr. Rosa is housed, this is an extraordinary case because of the age. Both parties here have the right to present what they want at a trial on this indictment. The state has the right to charge what they believe they can prove, and they've done so. The defense has the right to adequately investigate, do discovery, and present at trial if the case proceeds to a trial. What I want to ask of you is, what's the absolute fastest time period that we can get this case to a trial date? I have an answer in my mind, but I'd like your thoughts as well, because of any case that I have seen in 14 years, this one's got to move fast. Okay? So what do you think would be the earliest time we can get this case to issue? Ms. Riello, you got a bunch of depositions and discovery to take, not to mention mitigation efforts. What do you think?
Your Honor, I think that if the state, I think Your Honor can appreciate and can see that as soon as we receive discovery, we're going over it. So it's really a matter of when we receive it. If we receive all of the outstanding reports, and which we will review in an extremely expedited fashion, then we could speed this along. But if it takes 3 months to receive these reports in body-worn camera, and then the officers show up to the deposition without them, then we're getting delayed. I assure you that
El juez quiere ya que el caso se encierre, que el caso se mueva, está diciendo.
I know, Your
My
Honor.
question is,
En poca palabra, que estás harto del caso, dice el juez.
pulled out all the stops and gave Derek the effort that he is entitled to, how fast can you get this case to a trial?
I think that's, again, optimistically speaking, within a couple of months of receiving everything that we're entitled to receive.
Okay, good. Ms. Morales, how fast can you get what they're entitled to receive? And I'm talking days, not even weeks, okay? And if you're having a problem with a detective who hasn't written their report, you will bring them to me. The detective, not the report, okay? And we will get this done. In fact, what I'm going to ask you, and I know you got a lot on your plate because you're very busy and you handle very important cases, but I'm inclined to set this case for either next Friday or the Friday after that, so I can get a full play on who hasn't provided a report.
El juez le acaba de decir que tiene días y le dice no week, no weekdays, no semanas, sino días para entregar.
And the lieutenant in charge of
Pero
this law understand that.
estuvo bien, abogado, juez, pero estamos hartos de eso ya.
Sure.
So, Mr. Borst and I have been looking through, as you'd imagine, we have received received so much evidence, and I've been looking through while I turned over a lot of items. We are going to go item by item and witness by witness to be sure that every body cam was sent. I believe the last of the reports have been completed, and I will, by mid next week, I was going to say the end of this week, but I want to give myself some time, by mid next week, be able to confirm and turn over the rest of reports and body cam that exist, with the one caveat that I was going to jump in, but I didn't want to interrupt earlier, that as we mentioned, there are some depositions upcoming, and as we've been reaching out to witnesses to discuss their roles in the cases in preparation. For example, Officer Gutierrez, who was the officer whose body cam was with the defendant, because he's the one who was with the defendant at the time he's taken into custody until he's taken to Hialeah Police and up into the interview room. We turned over some time ago the only body cam we were aware of at the time, which is 3 hours long, back in May 6th. In meeting with him this week and discussing with him, he believed there was an additional video that we did not have. It turns out that there was one. We had somebody go by date and time by that officer, and it just wasn't issued with that police case number. So we've just had that sent to us. We'll be able to turn that over. So there's additional footage that might not have been correctly categorized that we're learning about as we're preparing further, and we'll continue to turn that over. So it's the only thing that I will go double check to make sure that everything we have is sent. I know that happened with Officer Gutierrez, and I believe, Mr. Borsch, correct me if I'm wrong, Officer Acosta also mentioned Acosta. So
ponle algo en la cara, no quiero verla.
Let us know that he was pretty sure there also was more video, and so we are having, and the Hialeah Police Department has been very helpful. Sergeant Jean DeLima is going manually through looking up dates and times and people to try and make sure that there's nothing else that should be associated with this case that isn't.
Morales no tiene nada, señores, nada. El vestido azul.
Officer Gutierrez and Officer Acosta are both set for Monday, August 26th, and they've been set for months. I would request that we get the video Morales just found today, if she sent it to the.
We were just trying to do it today, and as we're trying to download it to send, it truncated. So as soon as we're done with this hearing, you will have those.
There you go. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Thank you, both of you, all of you, for working so hard. But I'm real serious about getting this case done. If you're talking about a couple of 3 months to get this done, that would put us in a posture of trial December 2nd, with full hearings on the 3 days immediately prior to Thanksgiving.
Excusas. La fiscal está dando excusas, no tiene nada, señores.
As humanly possible. It requires a lot of work on your parts. I recognize that. But again, this case is extraordinary. And it's okay, let's talk about our next steps. Thank you very much.
Siguiente tema.
I think it's a very productive status conference.
Están tocando los 7 puntos pasados que Riel lo pidió.
Inspections of the electronic clothing and DNA. Ordinarily, that is done by contacting the prosecutor and saying, under what conditions do you want this to happen? Because you and or your investigator have to go to the property room, have it taken out from property, etc. Now, some things you're going to want to photograph, some things you're going to look at. If there's any testing of materials that needs to be done, you're going to have to file a specific motion on that, because that's going to require samples, it's going to require supervision by the lab, and that requires some extra things to be done. But in terms of just looking at, say, the knife that was used, or the fingerprint standards, or the fingerprint cards on the latents fingerprints that were taken off of the knife. I don't know if you have them or not, but that would be the standard operating procedure. You'll let me know. Can you guys coordinate on this examination?
So, Your Honor, we previously had coordinated. The detectives were available, the state was available, we reserved it, and defense canceled the inspection, the visual inspection, to be clear, because their expert that they were bringing along would be out sick, they said, and unavailable.
Okay.
We will reschedule that when the defense has asked, but it has not been rescheduled at this point.
Okay.
And
Can I suggest the process of when one person cancels, they provide the next date right there, and everybody agrees on, oh gee, my expert's unavailable on Thursday, but he'll be available